After the end of World War II, the world scrambled to return to normal, while the Allied victors attempted to bring justice to the Nazis for their crimes against humanity.
Hidden deep in the Amazon jungle during World War II, whispers of mysterious monks sparked fears of a secret Nazi operation. Could they have been part of a plot to change history? In this video, we're uncovering the secrets of the so-called Nazi monks, who sparked global intrigue in the 1940s. But that's not all. We'll also explore the legendary fighting monks of South Korea, the martial arts masters of Shaolin, the mysterious 200-year-old mummified monk of Mongolia.
They found there was a Buddha statue once, and they found out that it was actually a mummified Buddha that they had covered with a statue.
And more. From hidden jungles to ancient temples, these stories reveal the incredible and sometimes unbelievable world of monks throughout history. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. 1. Mysterious monks near the Amazon. The story of the Mystifying monks begins back in 1941, right in the middle of World War II. Deep in the Rio Negro area of the Amazon rainforest, strange whispers started to spread. People talked about a secret German operation hiding in the jungle. The FBI got wind of something big. There were rumors that the Germans might have built a hidden airbase deep in the jungle. This wasn't just idle gossip. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover got reports about a group of German monks living way out in the Amazon. These reports were alarming, especially since some thought these monks might be part of a bigger plan to attack the Panama Canal. Then, in December of that year, things got even more suspicious. People reported seeing huge amounts of fuel being carried upriver in Bolivia, at a time when gasoline was so hard to get because of the war. This raised a lot of eyebrows. Was this fuel for a secret airbase? These weren't your regular monks. There were concerns they could be working with the Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, getting ready for missions. But the jungle itself turned out to be their biggest enemy. Experts quickly realized it was nearly impossible to stockpile enough supplies to run a big operation in such a remote and unforgiving place. In the end, the idea of Nazi monks was dismissed as unlikely. But their story didn't disappear. Who were they? Were they peaceful monks living in isolation? Or was something more going on? The Amazon is no stranger to secrets, hiding everything from ancient ruins to modern mysteries. Maybe this is just another layer of the jungle's endless mysteries. But the Amazon isn't the only place with mysterious monks. Across the world in Korea, there's another story about monks, but these didn't hide in the jungle. They fought battles that shaped history. 2. The fighting monks of Beuni Temple. On the slopes of Mount Gyeomjong in Busan, South Korea, sits the famous Beuni Temple. Built in the 7th century during the Silla dynasty, this temple isn't just a spiritual place. It's tied to some of the most fascinating stories in Korea's history. And the monks who lived here? They weren't just peaceful spiritual guides. They were fierce warriors. During the Imjin War in the late 1500s, Japan invaded Korea again and again. That's when monks from temples like Beumi decided to fight back. They formed a righteous army to protect their country. Beumi's location, only about 30 miles from Japan's Tsushima Island, made it a key spot in the conflict. According to legend, King Munmu, who had built the temple, had a vision while praying on the mountain. This vision gave him the strength and guidance to fight off the invaders. The monks didn't just rely on prayers, they trained in Sun Mudo, a unique martial art that combines Zen meditation with powerful combat skills. They used swords, spears, and throwing stars to defend their land. Sun Mudo wasn't originally meant for war. It was about discipline and spiritual growth. But during these invasions, it became a vital tool for survival. Even today, the legacy of these warrior monks lives on. Modern monks still practice Sun Mudo, though now it's a weaponless version. It's not just about fighting, it's about building strength, discipline, and inner peace. Their training is intense with hours of meditation, physical exercise, and even running up the mountain before dawn. The fighting monks of Beumi Temple were more than spiritual leaders. They were warriors with unmatched skills in martial arts and meditation, defending their land with incredible strength and discipline. But the world of monks isn't just about battles and bravery. Across the mountains and valleys of Asia, there's another story. A monk whose life and death blur the lines between science and spirituality. 3. The 200-year-old mummified Buddhist monk. In the freezing wilderness of Mongolia, an extraordinary discovery left people in awe. The preserved body of a Buddhist monk, sitting perfectly still in a lotus position, was found. At first, it looked like an ancient artifact, but according to senior Buddhists, this monk wasn't dead. They believed he was in a deep meditative state, something beyond what science could explain. The monk's body was wrapped in cattle skins and was uncovered after a thief tried to sell it on the black market. His condition amazed scientists. They thought Mongolia's extreme cold might have helped preserve him, but they also wanted to investigate further to understand how his body had remained so intact. Some even think this monk could have been the teacher of Lama Dashi Dorjo, Itigilov, another Buddhist monk with an equally mysterious story. Back in 1927, Itigilov told his students he was about to pass away. He sat down in meditation and peacefully passed on. He instructed his followers to dig up his body 30 years later, and when they did, they found it perfectly preserved, no decay at all. Itigilov's remains were buried again to keep them safe during the Soviet era and weren't touched again until 2002. The discovery of the Mongolian monk reignited debates about an ancient Buddhist tradition called meditative death. According to Sanhugen Purevbot, a researcher at the Mongolian Institute of Buddhist Art, the monk's hand position suggested he was in a spiritual state, giving a sermon. Whether he's alive in meditation or simply preserved by nature, his story deepens the mystery surrounding Buddhist practices. But if you think that's incredible, wait until you hear about another group of monks. These weren't just masters of meditation. They became legends of martial arts. In the shadow of China's Mount Song, their story comes alive. 4. Shaolin Monks. On the slopes of Mount Song in China sits the Shaolin Temple, the birthplace of martial arts and spiritual discipline. This temple, built nearly 1,500 years ago, isn't just a peaceful retreat. It's the home of monks whose skills in combat have earned them a legendary reputation. The Shaolin Temple started as a place for Buddhist teachings, but it didn't take long for the monks to realize they needed to defend themselves. At first, they used simple weapons like staffs and spears to protect the temple from bandits. Over time, their techniques grew into what we now know as Shaolin Kung Fu, a form of martial arts that blends physical strength, agility, and spiritual focus. By the 16th century, the Shaolin monks had become famous warriors. One story tells of 120 Shaolin monks defeating over 100 pirates, with only 4 of their own losing their lives. Even though their training was meant for spiritual growth, it turned out to be just as effective on the battlefield. The temple itself is a masterpiece of design. Every part of it has meaning. Important buildings like the Thousand Buddhist Hall and the Sutra Keeping Pavilion are perfectly aligned, reflecting harmony and balance. Inside, murals cover the walls, showing the history of these warrior monks and their incredible skills. The Shaolin monks faced dark times during Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, almost disappearing completely. But their legacy survived, and today, their story is known around the world. Movies and shows have brought the image of these monks, dressed in gray robes, moving with precision, and showing their unmatched martial arts skills to global audiences. The Shaolin monks showed the world an incredible mix of martial arts skills and deep spiritual discipline. They weren't just fighters. They were living proof that the body and mind could work together in perfect harmony. But high above the clouds in the Himalayan mountains, another group of monks embraced a mysticism so deep that it forever changed Buddhism itself. 5. Tibetan Monks. In the towering peaks of the Himalayas, Tibetan monks follow a unique path of Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism, part of Vajrayana Buddhism, began in the 7th century. It mixes ancient rituals, deep philosophy, and even shamanistic traditions. This blend created a version of Buddhism unlike anything else. At its core are teachings that balance spiritual insight with worldly wisdom, passed down by iconic figures like the Dalai Lama. What makes Tibetan monks stand out is their devotion to understanding the mind and spirit. Back then, nearly a quarter of Tibet's people were part of religious orders. These monks didn't just sit and meditate. They also performed intricate rituals involving divine beings. To outsiders, these beings might seem like gods. But to the monks, they represent different parts of the mind, guiding them to spiritual growth. Tibetan Buddhism also has the fascinating tradition of reincarnating lamas called tulkus. These lamas are believed to be the rebirths of past spiritual leaders. ensuring a steady chain of wisdom passed through the generations. By the 14th century, Tibetan monks had translated all the Indian Buddhist texts they could find into their language. This preserved ancient knowledge that was later lost in India itself. The 20th century brought massive challenges. In the 1950s, China's communist government took control of Tibet, forcing many monks, including the Dalai Lama, to flee. But this hardship spread Tibetan Buddhism to the world. People in the West, drawn to its deep teachings, became devoted followers. Today, Tibetan monks are symbols of endurance and devotion, keeping their ancient traditions alive while inspiring modern spiritual seekers. But while Tibetan monks focus on mysticism and rituals, a very different approach to enlightenment can be found in Zen Buddhism. In Japan and China, Zen monks take a simpler, more direct path, relying on moments of sudden, life-changing insight. 6. Zen Monks. In the quiet and peaceful halls of Zen monasteries, monks walk a different path. Zen Buddhism traces its roots back to Bodhidharma, a teacher who followed a long line of Buddhist masters to Siddhartha Gautama, the original Buddha. What makes Zen stand out is its focus on sudden awakening, a deep realization that comes not from studying books, but from experiencing life directly. Zen monks believe true enlightenment can't be put into words. Instead, they use something called koans, riddles, or questions that don't have easy answers. These are designed to break normal thinking and lead to deeper understanding. For example, a koan might ask, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" or describe a mysterious action by a Zen master. The goal isn't to solve the riddle logically, but to go beyond logic itself. Even though Zen is unconventional, it doesn't abandon traditional practices. Monks still study Buddhist scriptures, perform ceremonies, and spend hours meditating. They also find mindfulness in everyday tasks. Simple acts like making tea or sweeping the floor are treated as opportunities for spiritual growth. Zen monasteries are not only places of spiritual training, they are centers of art and culture. Monks dive into studying Buddhist texts and Zen writings. Many also practice calligraphy and write poetry, using art to share their inner journeys and inspire others. Zen Buddhism's influence goes far beyond its temples. Its simple and focused approach to life has inspired people worldwide, from martial artists to tea masters. Even modern mindfulness practices owe much to the wisdom of Zen monks, proving that their teachings are as relevant today as ever. Zen monks pursue sudden awakening through enigmatic koans and meditative practice. Yet, even in the search for enlightenment, the extraordinary find a way to stand out. A remarkable story of reincarnation that connects a young boy to one of Tibetan Buddhism's most respected leaders. 7. Reincarnation of famous Rinpoche. In the peaceful Pin Valley of Spiti, India, an extraordinary story took the world by surprise. A 4-year-old boy named Nawang Tashi Raptin was declared the reincarnation of Taklung Tsetrul Rinpoche, the head of the Nyingma sect of Tibetan Buddhism. This announcement amazed his family and drew attention to the mysterious and sacred traditions of reincarnation in Tibetan Buddhism. The Nyingma sect, also known as the Old School, is the oldest of Tibetan Buddhism's 4 main schools. Its roots go back to the 8th century when King Trisong Detsen invited Indian scholars to translate Buddhist scriptures into Tibetan, creating the foundation for the Nyingma lineage. Taklung Tsetrul Rinpoche, one of its most respected leaders, passed away in 2015. His body was carefully preserved at Dorje Drak Monastery, while the monks watched for signs of his rebirth. In 2023, senior monks identified Nawang as the reincarnation of the late Rinpoche. This wasn't done casually. The process involved consultations with the Dalai Lama and Sakya Trichen Rinpoche, 2 of Tibetan Buddhism's most esteemed leaders. For Nawang's mother, the news brought both pride and sadness. Knowing her son was destined for a spiritual life gave her comfort, even though it meant letting him go. In Tibetan Buddhism, reincarnated lamas, or tulkus, are seen as carriers of wisdom from their past lives. Monks believe these children have the knowledge and compassion needed to guide others. With Nawang's ordination as the leader of Dorje Drak Monastery, the Nyingma sect's ancient teachings will continue for future generations. While the Nyingma monks keep their traditions alive, another branch of Buddhism shows how women have shaped their monastic life. In Theravada, Buddhism, Bhikkhuni monks have carved out a unique and inspiring role. 8. Bhikkhuni Monks. In Theravada Buddhism, the Bhikkhuni monks, or female monks, are symbols of strength and dedication. Their journey began with Mahapajapati Gautami, the Buddha's foster mother and aunt. She was the first woman to ask the Buddha for a monastic order for women. At first, the Buddha hesitated but eventually agreed, allowing women to join the Sangha 5 years after men. Like their male counterparts, Bhikkhunis live under strict monastic rules. They follow even more rules, 301 precepts compared to the 227 observed by bhikkhus. Despite these challenges, Bhikkhunis have made lasting contributions to Buddhism. One of their most treasured achievements is the Therigatha, a collection of poems by enlightened nuns. These writings, part of the ancient Pali canon, offer a glimpse into the spiritual journeys of early Bhikkhunis and show how women reached enlightenment alongside men. This tradition reflects one of Buddhism's core beliefs, that anyone, regardless of gender, can achieve enlightenment. In modern times, the Bhikkhuni tradition has regained attention. Gatherings like the 2007 International Congress in Hamburg, Germany, continue to highlight the importance of gender equality in Buddhist monastic life. Today, Bhikkhunis are reclaiming their role in Buddhism, proving that women can lead with the same spiritual authority as men. The Bhikkhuni order is a testament to Buddhism's ability to adapt while staying true to its values. From the reincarnated wisdom of Tibetan lamas to the determination of Bhikkhuni monks, these stories remind us that the paths to enlightenment are as diverse as they are inspiring. Bhikkhunis demonstrated the profound spiritual contributions of women within Theravada Buddhism. But Mahayana monks took the idea even further, shaping a philosophy that reached beyond monastic life to embrace a mission of wisdom and compassion for everyone. 9. Mahayana Monks. Mahayana Buddhism is a blend of deep tradition and forward-thinking ideas. Its approach to monastic life and philosophy builds on the foundations of earlier Buddhist teachings, while adding a fresh perspective. It started in India and still respects the ancient monastic rules, called the Vinaya lineages. Unlike Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana isn't about competing. It's more about growing and expanding Buddhist thought. At the heart of Mahayana is the idea of the Bodhisattva, a person who vows to reach enlightenment not just for themselves, but for the good of everyone. This idea isn't just for monks. It's for anyone willing to live by virtues like wisdom, kindness, and focus through meditation. The teachings of Mahayana are organized into 2 key schools, Madhyamika and Yogacara. The Madhyamika school, created by Nagarjuna, focuses on the concept of emptiness. It teaches that nothing has an independent existence, a view rooted in the Prajnaparamita scriptures. On the other hand, Yogacara, developed by Asanga and Vasubandhu, takes this idea and blends it with traditional Buddhist practices. Together, these schools balance philosophy with practical ways to live a mindful life. Mahayana Buddhism also stands out because it includes lay people, those who aren't monks or nuns. This openness led to significant changes, like the practice in Japan, where priests were allowed to marry during the Meiji era. Today, Mahayana Buddhism thrives in places like Tibet, China, and Japan, inspiring people with its focus on wisdom and compassion. While Mahayana monks found a way to blend discipline with outreach, early Christianity saw a different kind of monastic life. Anchorites chose total isolation and self-denial, dedicating themselves entirely to prayer and solitude. 10. Anchorites. The Anchoritic tradition is one of the most extreme expressions of the Christian faith. Anchorites and anchoresses chose to leave behind the world and live completely alone, often in tiny rooms connected to churches. This practice began in the early Christian East, where people expressed their devotion through simple living, prayer, and giving up worldly comforts. Inspired by Jesus' call to leave everything behind and follow him, these men and women believed that cutting off all distractions brought them closer to God. Their lives were simple and focused, often consisting of just the bare essentials. As more people adopted this way of life, the church created specific guidelines to keep the practice orderly and meaningful. By the Middle Ages, this tradition had spread to Western Europe. Many anchorites lived in single cells where they could stay connected to the church while remaining isolated. These cells were often built into church walls, with small windows for receiving food and hearing prayers. Unlike monks in communities, Anchorites lived entirely alone, dedicating themselves to God without any interruptions. While this lifestyle inspired many believers, it wasn't for the faint of heart. Some Anchorites took their devotion to extreme levels, leading the church to set limits on what was acceptable. Despite the challenges, their commitment to prayer and self-denial left a lasting impact on Christian spirituality. Anchorites embodied a life of radical seclusion, dedicating their every moment to God. But even their profound solitude pales in comparison to the deeply mystical practices of the Hesychasts, who sought divine light through a unique and transformative form of prayer. 11. Hesychasts. In the peaceful traditions of Eastern Christianity, hesychasm became a powerful way to seek spiritual enlightenment. The word comes from the Greek hesychia, which means quietness or stillness. Hesychasm is all about finding divine quietness through constant prayer and deep reflection. It's not just about the mind, it's a practice that brings the soul, mind, and body into perfect harmony through what's called pure or intellectual prayer. At the center of Hesychast practice is the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Many practitioners repeat this prayer while syncing it with their breathing, creating a rhythm that unites their physical and spiritual focus. Saint John Climacus, a key figure in hesychasm, famously taught, "Let the remembrance of Jesus be present with each breath." His teachings inspired others like Saint Nicephorus, who suggested focusing on the middle of the body to keep one's attention steady during prayer. Not everyone embraced hesychasm, though. In the 14th century, a critic named Barlaam the Calabrian ridiculed the monks, calling them omphilopsychetes, or those who have their souls in their navels. But defenders like St. Gregory Palamas stood firm. They believed that through this deep prayer and the sacraments, people could experience the same divine light that Christ's disciples saw during his transfiguration. The Orthodox Church eventually backed hesychasm, solidifying it as a respected spiritual tradition. Even today, hesychasm remains influential, especially in Russia, where a collection of writings called the Philokalia is considered essential reading for spiritual seekers. But while hesychasts pursued stillness and solitude, another group of monks found a way to balance isolation with community life. Skeet monks created a lifestyle that combined the best of both worlds. 12. Skeet monks. Skeet monks found a unique path in Christian monasticism by blending the life of a hermit with the structure of a monastery. These communities offered a middle way. Monks could spend time in solitude without completely separating from others. Skeet communities were typically made up of small, scattered cells or caves arranged around a shared chapel or church. Monks spent most of their days in prayer and quiet reflection alone. However, they would come together for communal worship on Sundays and feast days. This setup allowed them to have the peace of solitude while still feeling connected to a community. The living spaces of Skeet monks were simple and often self-made. A typical cell had 2 small rooms, one for daily living and meeting visitors, and another devoted entirely to prayer and meditation. Some monks carved their cells into rock walls, creating cave-like retreats. Others built small mud or brick huts against cliffs, much like the ancient Pueblo dwellings. Over time, these setups became more developed, but simplicity always remained at the core of Skeet's life. One of the most well-known Skeet monks was Saint Macarius. His lifestyle perfectly captured the Skeet spirit. His 2-room cell even included a hidden tunnel that led to a cave for moments when he needed complete seclusion. This balance of living apart yet staying accessible to the community defined the Skeet way. Every Skeet community had a leader, called an Abba, who provided spiritual guidance and helped keep the community grounded. This system allowed monks to grow in their relationships with God while still following a shared spiritual discipline. The world of monks is more than just meditation and solitude. It's filled with mysteries, legends, and stories that blur the line between history and myth. From the jungles of the Amazon to the peaks of the Himalayas, these tales remind us of the incredible depth of human spirituality and resilience. If you enjoyed this dive into the fascinating lives of monks, make sure to smash that like button, share this video with someone who loves a good mystery, and subscribe for more stories that uncover the world's hidden wonders. And hey, let us know in the comments which monk story amazed you the most. Until next time, keep exploring the extraordinary.